Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can. And they continue with Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 2, Blind. Now, last time Janos Ordron was attacked by the Seraphim, and now I'm trying to get back to him and help him. Although, given that he was dead in the future, I suppose I don't succeed.
Look at his black heart! How it still beats!
The fiend intends to bury us alive! Raziel, we must get out of here!
Remember the sword!
Forgive me. I'm sorry. I failed you.
No, Raziel. Perhaps this was my true purpose. Simply to save your life this once.
While I have taken yours.
Embrace your destiny, Raziel. You must reclaim the Reaver. It was forged for you and you alone. Without it, there is no hope.
As I backed away from Janos's body, I was overwhelmed by a sense of self-loathing so deep I could barely contain it. In that instant, I rejected all that I ever was, and embraced the role Janos had safeguarded for me so patiently throughout the centuries. I knew then what I had to do, the task for which I was uniquely prepared. I would pursue the Seraphim dogs to their loathsome fortress and avenge Janos Ordron's murder. Mobius would pay dearly for his treachery, and my Seraphim brethren would reap the horrors they had sown. I would retake the stolen Reaver, which was rightfully mine. And finally, when all these debts had been paid, I would reclaim Janos Ordron's heart from their filthy, unworthy hands. If the heart was truly imbued with the power to restore vampiric unlife, its highest purpose was clear to me. I would restore the heart to Janos, and thus undo the vile crime committed by my abominable former self.
Okay, so all of this is awfully ironic, because first of all, it was Raziel himself who killed Janos Ordron in the first place. He just doesn't remember it because that was back when he was still a human. And second, it seemed this.
We've been expecting you, little Raziel.
So, these demonic pests were not merely the product of Nosgoth's corrupted future, for here they were, hurtling back over 5 centuries to pursue me. These creatures, I suspected, were minions of the unseen forces that had hoped to control me. This was the tangible expression of their displeasure. These demons were unleashed as the penalty for my disobedience.
And second, it seems that the Seraphim only found Janos Odrun because Raziel has led them to him, but he only did that because he came back in time to save him, which in turn killed him, which was the reason why he came back in time in the first place. So it's like a never-ending loop, which I guess once again sort of pertains to what Kain said, that history is stubborn. There is it's not easy. It's not easy to change history, and in fact it's borderline impossible, barring some very special events involving the Soul Reaver. So that's very sort of cheeky and interesting. And I guess what's even more interesting is that the game is setting up Raziel hunting down the Seraphim. So I wonder if I am going to kill myself and all of my brothers, therefore laying grounds for Kain resurrecting us later as vampires, which at the beginning Raziel was very indignant about and was very angry at Kain for doing.
Do you really think you can save Nosgoth? Let me enlighten you, Raziel.
Okay, are there more of them? There are. Which way am I supposed to be going? Is it this way? It goes up, so it's a good sign. Although, does it go up? Okay, so that was in fact not where I was supposed to be going. I apologize, but to be honest, if you have been watching this channel for some time, you're probably used to it, and it's probably not going to change. Getting lost, both in games and in real life, it's such an immutable element of me being me that I'm unsure whether it will ever actually change.
There he is, the savior of Nosgoth.
Okay, I'm dead. I guess I might save, just in case. Okay, given that the barrier has not disappeared, there is at least one more of those demons somewhere? Okay, still need corporeal form, because otherwise I won't be able to operate the lever.
Closer, Raziel. Shall not pass.
Okay, I'm dead. Question is, how far away is the last checkpoint? I'm not entirely sure.
You have failed me, Raziel.
I wonder, Old One. Did you truly resurrect me, or were you simply there when I awakened from my torment in the abyss? I suspect you found me merely convenient, dropped in your lair by Kain, indestructible for some reason, a durable and gullible tool for you to manipulate. This one thing I readily admit. I have been used by others time and again, but always I seem to stray from their path. What is it about me, demon, that makes me such an unreliable instrument? Why do I survive one trial after another, on and on, in an endless succession of humiliating deaths and resurrections? It seems there is much more to my destiny and my history than I know. Perhaps more than you know as well.
Okay, he didn't have much of an answer to that. Or if he did, he chose not to say it. Okay, so apparently I can't get through here. But maybe I can... Because there is an air vent, or whatever how you would call it, over here. So maybe I can somehow utilize that. Oh, no, it's actually a fire. It's a fire shrine to melt the ice. Okay, I get it. But first I need to find the actual fire forge so that I can transform the Reaver. I admit I wasn't paying attention because I didn't know I'm going to need a Flame Reaver. Okay.
Suddenly and inexplicably, I discovered the Reaver suspiciously laid across my path. Again, I sensed nothing of that temporal distortion, the peculiar sense of displacement I had felt when I encountered the Reaver in William's chapel. Cornered here with the blade, I suffered the same nameless dread that I had experienced when Janos first presented the Reaver to me. I felt at once repelled by the blade, and yet overwhelmingly compelled to seize it.
So, Raziel, here we are, finally. You have no choice but to confront me now. And I am not so foolish as I've let you believe. We have business to conclude.
You knew I would lead the Seraphim to Janos, you vile bastard. You've been orchestrating my every move. My destiny is an amusement to you.
It was fun while it lasted. I think not, Raziel. Malik, do not let this creature leave. He poses a danger to the Circle. Poor, deluded Raziel. Did you somehow imagine you had the guile to change history on me? I'm the Time Streamer. I knew your every intention before you did, you imbecile.
All your dogs! They can feast on your corpses!
Lord Mobius, there is trouble within. The Circle is under
Hold
attack.
fast, Malik. This one is the real danger to us.
What are you trying to concoct here, Mobius?
You toxic creature. Did you imagine I'd simply allow you to run loose? Corrupting everything you encounter?
I admit that I've underestimated you to this point, Mobius. It's a mistake I won't repeat.
Wrong again, Raziel. Now, Malik. Bolt the door.
Using his staff to disable my Wraithblade, Mobius effectively disarmed me, leaving me with only one choice of weapon. And yet I confess, it was not the lack of options, but blind rage that made me take up the Reaver. In my fury, it felt as though my hand had acted of its own will. And now, that same hand clutched the hilt with unyielding strength, and I felt a constrained tingling, a remote but palpable sense of longing, as the disabled Wraithblade tried vainly to embrace its physical twin.
Okay, that's very interesting, because there was a piece of audio playing in the background that was actually from Blood Omen 1. That was the Circle getting slaughtered and calling for Malik to come and help them. And there was Vorador laughing, because that's Vorador that killed them. But this game recontextualizes that Malik didn't arrive in time because Mobius actually stopped him. So it turns out Mobius perhaps orchestrated the whole death of the Circle in the first place. So that's kind of interesting, I guess. But also, it turns out that technically the catalyst for the death of the Circle was Raziel, because Malik only stopped because Raziel was here, and that's why he didn't arrive in time to save the Circle. Although, to be honest, it's debatable whether he could, because in the end Vorador killed him anyway, so it seems Vorador was just stronger than Malik, and even if Malik was there, that still wouldn't have helped. But either way, that's kind of interesting.
Come to take your revenge, demon? Back to hell with you!
I recognize these two as my former brethren, in life as Sarafan, and in unlife as Kain's vampire sons. Melchiah and Zephon, the weakest of Kain's brood. These bastards had no idea what future lay in store for them, how they would become the very thing they so despised. The Reaver hummed with ravenous anticipation. Janos had called it a vampiric blade, endowed with the power to drain its victims of their lifeblood. I was eager to see what the Reaver would do to these two. Zephyr fell before my blade, I felt the Reaver's bloodthirst as keenly as I ever had when I was still a vampire. I could sense the boundary between us dissolving. The Reaver was consumed with my rage, and I was intoxicated by its bloodlust. The blade had a vitalizing effect on me. My physical energy no longer decayed over time, and the wounds inflicted by my foes healed almost instantly. The Reaver had made me invincible.
So once again, this is pretty much a loop, because I assume I'm going to kill all of my brothers and myself, and then they are going to end up as vampires. But the one thing I don't understand is how does it work?
Have you come to reclaim the monster's black heart?
You'll have to get to us first.
My former brethren, Duma and Rahab, confronted me next. This all seemed so elegantly choreographed. Exhilarated by the Reaver, I was drunk with revelations. I could finally appreciate the delicious irony of Kain's blasphemous private joke, and I reveled as I colluded with him across the centuries. For it was I who put these bastards in their tomb, thus providing the corpses for Kain to raise as his vampire sons a millennium from now.
Yeah, that's cool and all, but what I don't get is how does it work with Raziel himself? Because there's essentially two Raziels, and to kill himself, therefore allowing himself to be turned into a vampire, he must have been a vampire already, because he is, and he traveled back in time. So I don't get that. Like, I don't get how it works. Because seemingly the game is trying to tell me that the cause of death for Raziel, well, presumably I'm going to kill Raziel as well. That's going to be determined, but if I do, at least it's it's telling me very clearly about my brothers that their cause of death and the reason why they were able to be raised by Kain was me. So, it kind of works with them, I guess, but if I happen to kill myself, I'm not quite sure how that is supposed to work.
Get back to the pit you crawled from, demon.
And here at last was my brother Turel, who along with Duma would bear me into the abyss without questioning Kain's command. So dutiful and righteous, even as a vampire. I guess some habits die hard. The vampire Turel had eluded my vengeance. The Sarafan Turel would not.
I am literally indestructible.
So, vampire, here we are. You've destroyed my brethren, and now you've come for me. You'll find I'm not such easy prey. I don't want to kill you, but I will if I must. Return the heart to me, and we can end this now. So, you've come to avenge that filthy parasite and reclaim his foul heart. You're a righteous fiend, aren't you? Apparently I am. No, vampire. This is where it ends. But you won't be leaving this room. Now, let's finish this. I'll make it mercifully quick. As you did for Janos? No, that beast had eluded us for far too long. It would have been a shame to end him too quickly. It's ironic, really. The great Janos Ordrin turned out to be no challenge at all. Thanks to you. Did you hear his cowardly screams when I tore that black heart out of his carcass?
Okay, so while this is interesting, I am, as I said, unsure on the exact mechanics of killing yourself. Because Raziel dying here is, as the game suggests to me, the reason why he was dead in the first place and able to be risen by Kain. But obviously, the Raziel I am playing has already been turned into a vampire, and I am just now doing the deed that allowed it to be done. So that seems to make no sense whatsoever to me, but you know.
renounce you. And so it ends. My history comes full circle. Sensing its twin, the Wraithblade uncoiled itself from me, and instead wound lovingly around its former self. I felt its grip loosen, and as the blade left me, its absence chilled me more than its presence ever had. A foreboding sense of emptiness and loss stole over me, and a terrible revelation gathered like a storm at the edge of my awareness. With all other foes exhausted, the conjoined blades turned themselves on me, and I realized, finally, why I had sensed nothing when Janos offered me the blade. The Reaver was never forged to be a soul-stealing weapon. The ravenous, soul-devouring entity trapped in the blade was, and always had been, me. This is why the blade was destroyed when Kain tried to strike me down. The Reaver could not devour its own soul. The paradox shattered the blade. So, this was my terrible destiny. To play out this purgatorial cycle for all eternity. I could not bear it. Despair overwhelmed me. You. Are you enjoying this, Kain? Don't fight it, Raziel. Give into it. Was this your destiny for me all along? Trust me. I felt myself weakening, unable to hold on any longer. The Reaver was too strong. The compulsion to simply let go, too great. And then, a growing sense of vertigo and the familiar displacement. The paradoxical moment when my twinned soul hovered both outside and inside the Reaver blade. This was the instant, the glimmer of temporal distortion Kain had been counting on all along. This was the edge of the coin, the minute flicker of probability upon which Kain had gambled everything.
Now you are free to reclaim your true destiny, Raziel.
Behind Kain's eyes, I could see new memories blooming and dying as history labored to reshuffle itself around this monumental obstruction. And I could see by the dawning horror on his face that perhaps we had strained history too far this time. That by trying to alter my fate, he may have introduced a fatal paradox.
My God. The Hilden. We walked right into their trap. Raziel, Janos must stay dead.
But Kain's warning was lost as I slipped into the spirit realm, too weak to maintain my physical form. And there, waiting for me as always, was the Reaver, the Wraithblade, my own soul, twinned and bound eternally to me. And I realized that I could never escape my terrible destiny. I had merely postponed it. History abhors a paradox.
Okay, so that was Soul Reaver 2, and generally I would say I had fun. I would say I had more fun than with Soul Reaver 1. I think the game is less tedious, and it dragged on a little bit less than Soul Reaver 1, because generally I feel like the ratio between the story slash cutscenes slash dialogues versus combat and puzzles is a little more skewed towards the story in this one, which I definitely enjoyed, because the gameplay is nothing to write home about. Like, I think the puzzles are actually better in Soul Reaver 2 because the blocks are gone. Like, the damnable repetitive block puzzles are gone, and overall they were a little bit more diverse. But the combat was still bland and boring, and there was a lot of it, and generally it seemed pointless, so I just skipped it most of the time, and I'm not even feeling embarrassed about it. Like, to be honest, there seems to be no reason other than pure boredom and masochism to engage in combat in this game. But yeah, I think this game was rather cool, and I feel better about playing it and after playing it than I did with Soul Reaver 1, because after Soul Reaver 1 I was kind of drained. I needed a little bit of space, even though you're not going to be able to tell, because probably Soul Reaver 2 is going to be released right after Soul Reaver 1 on my channel. I haven't decided yet, but there is a high possibility of that. But in fact, it has been a couple of months since I played Soul Reaver 1. So yeah, I needed a break after that game. Whereas here, I had fun. I don't feel particularly drained. The combat was still meh, but I was just running away from it most of the time, so it's not that big of a problem. Like, a solid 90% of the combat in this game was entirely skippable. And I feel like I didn't lose anything by skipping it, so, you know, that's a-okay with me. But generally, while this game still ended on a bit of a sequel baitish note, it did actually resolve a bunch of things, and it did expand a lot on the story of Soul Reaver 1 and Blood Omen. So I did enjoy it. The story was rather convoluted, but in a fun way. I am a sucker for those self-fulfilling prophecies, so it was very cool to see how events from previous games have been recontextualized within this game. For example, you know, the Circle getting slaughtered and Malik being stopped by Raziel, of all people, and also you killing your own brothers and yourself was a very interesting move, although, as I said during the game itself, I'm not entirely sure whether you killing yourself makes sense in, like, logical terms. Even if we assume time travel is real, I don't think this works, because it doesn't follow. Like, you had to already be a vampire to go back in time and kill yourself so that you could become a vampire. I don't think this makes sense, but it was still kind of cool and interesting. And generally it was interesting to see, you know, how Raziel's mindset has changed, because in Soul Reaver 1 he idolized the Sarafan, and he was like he was mourning for his lost humanity. But within this game, he learned that they were all a bunch of genocidal dicks, and he himself among them. So it was interesting. He said, while killing himself, he said, "I renounce you." Like, he renounced himself. But what's interesting and weird is that he should have. Why didn't he remember all of this? Is it because so much time has passed since his death to his resurrection? Because I'm pretty sure Kain, when he was resurrected as a vampire, he retained memories of his life as a human, so it's not like he woke up as a blank slate. And, you know, killing yourself in the past is such an, you know, such an eventful occasion that you think you would remember something like that. But then again, as I said, I'm not sure how this works because, essentially there are multiple Raziels, but the one that killed the human one was himself a human earlier. So, what? How does it work? I'm not exactly sure, but it was interesting and kind of intriguing. And maybe the next games will somehow elaborate on that idea. What else? I didn't entirely get in the ending because Raziel and Kain seemed to have thought that what they did was changing history, but I don't see how that's possible. If the game implies that the Soul Reaver, well, not implies, it straight up tells you that the Soul Reaver originally was not a soul-stealing weapon. Raziel himself was a soul-stealing weapon, and when he stabbed himself with the blade, part of his soul got trapped in it, and part was still left in his body, and that at this exact time, Kain pulled out the blade, so I guess Raziel's soul was split, and therefore the Soul Reaver was transformed into a weapon that could steal souls, because it had a part of Raziel's soul in it. But what I don't get is, it must have always been so, because and Kain and Raziel have lived through it, because from their perspective, in the future, for example, in Soul Reaver 1 and also in Blood Omen, the Soul Reaver was already soul stealing, so it has always happened. So why they were like, unless it works like this, because there was also this distinct moment where the game said, Raziel said that Kain's eyes, he could see in Kain's eyes new memories forming themselves. So I guess what might have happened is, from their perspective, they did it for the first time, but retroactively, therefore, it has always happened. So in that moment when Kain was doing it, creating the Soul Reaver as a soul-stealing weapon, his memories reshuffled inside his head to accommodate for the fact that in the future from which he came, it has already happened and has always happened, but he didn't remember that exact moment of him doing it because he hasn't yet, and yet he did, because in the moment in which he did it, it has sort of retroactively applied itself to all of history, as it were. So that's a very cool concept, actually. And I guess that might also be why Raziel in the previous games didn't remember anything about his human, about how his human self died, because those memories were blocked. He had to do it, quote unquote, for the first time when you played the game, and therefore it retroactively has always happened, even though, as I said, with Raziel himself, I still don't get it. I still think it possibly doesn't make sense, but it's definitely interesting, even if it doesn't make sense. What else? Kain said something about the Hilden. He said, we've fallen right into the trap of the Hilden, but if I remember correctly, that's literally the first time ever that I heard that word, so I'm not sure what to make of it. Presumably it's going to be elaborated upon in the sequel. But yeah, I definitely had fun. The game was cool, and I feel excited again about Legacy of Kain and about playing the next game, which I didn't quite feel after Soul Reaver 1. So generally I would say Soul Reaver 2 is better than Soul Reaver 1, at least in my subjective opinion. What else? I might write a prolonged summary extended summary of my thoughts and feelings, like a review of Soul Reaver 2. If I do, it's going to be in a pinned comment underneath this video, and if I don't, then I guess I don't, and that's it. So for now, that's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.